Okay, let's talk about secondary chords. You should have the PDF for the secondary chords out. You might want to put it next to the primary chords PDF so we can see the whole thing. Because your goal here is to start to get kind of a menu in your head of chords that work in each key. And if you put those two sheets next to each other, then you're going to be able to read the rows across, and you'll see that, for instance, in the key of C, you now have 8 chords that are going to work in the key of C. You got C, F, and G, which are our good old primary chords. Then we learned that the G is often made to a 7th. So that'd be another chord. That'd be our 4th chord, the G7. And now this new sheet is telling us that D minor, E minor, A minor, and B flat, which if you don't know how to play, don't worry about at the moment. Got to do it as a bar chord. Those are also all good chords in the key of C. As the name implies, these chords are of secondary importance to the primary chords. You're going to see the primary chords way more often than you see the secondary chords, and especially in this kind of old-timey music and early folk, early country, early rock, you're going to see only an occasional secondary chord, or one or two in a song. That being said, you're going to want to know how to play them. Some of them require bar chords. There's 4 bar chords that I've put in the PDFs. There's 2 minor shapes and 2 major shapes. And hopefully those will be pretty self-explanatory in terms of the chord diagrams. I'll talk about them a little bit more when we run into them in the context of this video. Notice that I've got a star next to the column for the 6th chord. That is the most important of the 3 minor chords in each key. Kind of the same way that the 5 chord is more important or a stronger chord change than the 4 chord, the 6 minor chord, we would call it, takes precedence over the second or the third, the 2 chord or the 3 chord. And again, these Roman numeral names are all from the space that the note occupies in the major scale. So D is the 2nd note of the C major scale, so we give the chord built on that note the name, the 2 chord. The chord built on the 6th note of the major scale is called the relative minor of the key. So if you play a C chord, in the key of C, the 6th chord is an A minor. And you should be able to shift to an A minor by only moving one finger. Your 3rd finger, you tuck it in next to your 2nd finger. So the guitar is demonstrating to us that these 2 chords are very similar. So if you're trying to decide what order to learn all these chords in, my advice would be learn the primary chords. Then when you're tackling this secondary chord sheet, focus on the column of the 6th chord. So in other words, in the key of G, you're going to be best off knowing G, C, D, and E minor. In the key of A, you're going to want to know A, D, E, and F sharp minor. So let's take a look at these bar chords. I'm going to be pretty brief about this because I think there are a lot of resources out there for helping you with bar chords. In my opinion, the 4 I'm going to show you are far and away the most important. The idea here is the bar chords I'm going to show you are based on 2 of our open shapes, the E chord and the A chord. So I'm going to call this first set E shape bar chords. One way to get a handle on this is play a good old E major chord and then see if you can re-finger it using the next set of fingers. So instead of 2nd, 3rd, 1st finger, see if you can play it 3rd finger, 4th finger, 2nd finger, okay? Then see if you can take that and slide it on up to the 6th and 7th frets. So your 5th, 4th, and 3rd string should sound like this. Now your finger is going to replace the nut, and you have to hold down the 6th string, the 2nd string, and the 1st string with your 1st finger. Press with your thumb on the back. And you're going to get an A chord because you've changed the root note. You've taken that entire shape and moved it up to the 5th through 7th fret. Now, you're going to want to experiment with your first finger. I've got mine shoved pretty far up so that I'm playing the 6th string with kind of my top knuckle, kind of hooking my finger over the edge there, and that leaves the fattest part of my finger where it meets my hand to squash down these top 2 strings. Okay? The minor version of this requires you to lift up your middle finger. I would recommend lying it on top of your first finger for extra pressure, because now you need to squeeze the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st strings with your first finger. Okay? I actually don't play these chords this way anymore, which is probably why I'm getting a little bit of buzz here. I tend to play them in a variation where I'm playing like a beginner's F on the top and hooking my thumb around and leaving the 5th string dead. But I think you're probably going to want to start off learning this version. So that's our major chord, and this is our minor chord. And our root note is on the 6th string, okay? So you're definitely going to want to watch the videos about learning the notes up and down the neck, and the videos about using the capo, because it's very similar in terms of the thought process that's going on. We're taking an open shape, and then we're putting it somewhere else on the neck, and then we're using our first finger to create a new nut, essentially. And that's creating a chord that we can move around. So E-shaped bar chords. The A-shaped bar chords look like this. Now, you can try the same little trick. Try and refinger your A chord using your 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers. Try moving that up to the 7th fret. Now, see if you can lay your first finger across the top 5 strings. So your first finger is holding down the 5th string on the 5th fret and the 1st string on the 5th fret. This is another one that I don't actually play this shape very often. Try and get rid of some of that buzz there. Okay. That is one option for playing that bar chord. I hardly ever play that shape. I play it this way. Here's your other option. You're going to hold down the new root note with your first finger, and you're going to hold down the notes on the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string with your 3rd finger. You're going to lose the 1st string. It's going to be dead. It actually sounds like it have a little fret there that needs to be sanded down or something. I've got a little bit of buzz on my guitar right there. So that is a movable major chord based on the A, the open A shape. So this would be a C chord, a B chord. And the minor version of it, again, you would play an A minor chord, try and use different set of fingers, move it up somewhere, lay your first finger down. You don't have to worry about the 6th string. My fingertip is kind of muting the 6th string. And that would give you a movable minor chord. Again, I think watching the capo videos is going to help you understand this. Also, you're going to want the PDF that shows you the names of the notes on the 6th string and the 5th string, because the lowest note in these bar chords, that's the root note, and that's how I'm deciding where to put it. So in other words, this bar chord shape, the root note is on the 6th string. If I want a B major chord, the 7th fret of the 6th string is a B. I want that to be the root note, and so forth. You may have noticed there's one column in this secondary chord chart that is not a minor chord. That's the flat 7 chord. And in the key of C, it's a B flat. So what I was doing earlier in the video was I was playing a major A-shaped bar chord starting on the 1st fret. The flat 7 chord is an interesting chord, and it replaces very often the 5 chord. So very often you have a song that has, so in the key of G, let's say, rather than G, C, and D, you might have G, C, and then the flat 7 chord, as you can see, is F. Okay? but that's a good example of the use of the flat 7 chord. It's going to appear in fiddle tunes, like I said. So my advice with this sheet about the secondary chords is to not focus on it until you run into them. When you're learning a tune and there's a chord that doesn't fit into your primary chord understanding of a key, this would be the chart to use as a reference. And I think 9 times out of 10, the mystery chord is going to be on this chart. And that'll help you figure out, the chord you're trying to figure out. Keep in mind that at the bottom there, you want to really understand that all these minor chords, D minor, E minor, A minor in the key of C, could possibly appear as major chords or dominant 7th chords. That's just one of the little wrinkles in music theory. So in other words, that's a whole nother set of possible chords that could appear. So I think I did the math right in that if you added up all the possible secondary chords, you'd have 50 possible chords. You got to take all those minor chords and convert them to major chords or 7th chords, and then take into account the flat 7 chords. So that's 50 chords that you could run into. But again, I really think you should make this a secondary area of study and worry about the primary chords and learn a bunch of songs, and then learn these secondary chords on a case-by-case basis as you run into them. That's a really good way to go.